Okay, hi everybody. So here we are with part 2 of my birth story with the twins. Just ignore the fact that my hair is wet. I actually do not blow dry my hair, and so it is what it is. But anyway, let's get started. So where I left off was when I told you guys that I was in the hospital. I was in antepartum for Friday night, which is 4/20, and then, over to the next day, obviously, 4/21, and that I was admitted to labor and delivery, officially, not in antepartum, but in labor and delivery, which is like literally down the hall, at 9:30 p.m. So, we did all the, stuff that I have to do. They asked all the questions, so they have to ask over again. I had already signed all the papers for anything, like, care-wise for me or for the girls, so I didn't have to do that, but, like, everything else I had to do, I actually have a kind of insurance where everything's in-house. I don't, like, go to a hospital where I have to show them my insurance and do all the paperwork for insurance and billing and all that stuff. My hospital it's all the same, and, I also had really good insurance, or I have really good insurance still, so there's no billing. My insurance paid for 100% of everything, so I didn't have to worry about that, but everything else, all the normal stuff, admission stuff. So at about 11:30 p.m., they decided to test. They didn't start Pitocin. I'm not going to say it like that. They decided to test the Pitocin. So if you've never had Pitocin before, I believe that they go up by twos. So it's like 2, 4, 6, all the way to 20. So the lowest dose is 2. And so they put it on a 2. They said, we're not doing Pitocin to start you going into labor. We just want to see how your body reacts to it. We want to see if you have contractions from being on Pitocin, the lowest dose. We want to see if the girl's heart rates, like, decelerate or accelerate or anything goes on with that. We want to make sure that you don't have a reaction to it, that you're not allergic to the Pitocin in case you need it later, which they were assuming that they would need. And so, yeah, they just had that run for 2 hours, and, I didn't feel anything. So, okay. And so they came back in, 1:30 a.m., this is 4:22 now, and they gave me half a pill of a misoprostol pill. So misoprostol is kind of like, if you've seen labor and delivery vlogs and someone has Cervidil, it's like that, except I didn't have it, put in like a tampon. It was an oral pill. I took it with a drink normally, so it was just a half dose, and I definitely felt some cramping. They weren't painful. I went to sleep. I woke up a couple times because they were coming in to, like, mess with the little, like, heart rate monitors, because especially Frankie, she kept moving off of it, just, like, ever so slightly. So, they kept coming in, and they kept waking up, and so it wasn't exactly super restful, but it wasn't not restful because of contractions or anything. It was fine. But I was having contractions back to back. They were, I don't remember how long they were, but they were 2 minutes apart. And they were like, we can't even give you another pill, let alone start the actual induction, because this is just for cervical ripening, until you have contractions at least 5 minutes apart. So we waited, and we waited, and we waited, and we waited, and finally, I think it was about like 1-something p.m. I have this all written down, and I should have grabbed my notebook from when I was pregnant with the twins. I wrote down everything. My mom took notes of all the times, and I wrote down everything in the book, the little baby book. But I forgot to get it, and I'm not gonna, worry about exact times or anything. But yeah, approximately, 1:30 p.m. They finally went to 5 minutes apart. They brought in a dog. They were like, oh yeah, here's a dog. You can have, like, some pet therapy time. So I was like, heck yes, I love dogs so much. And yeah, the dog came in. The dog was really cute. It was really nice. And then they came back in. They said, do you want to do a full dose of misoprostol, or do you want to do the Foley balloon, or do you want to start Pitocin? What do you want to try to do? And I said, I do not want Pitocin. I'm cool with the Foley bulb, but what's the way that this works? And they said, well, we would like to give you a full dose of misoprostol and do the Foley bulb together. So I took miso. They gave me some fentanyl so they could put the Foley bulb in, because I was not about to be touched down there at all whatsoever without fentanyl. So they did that. Foley bulb was fine. Like, I don't, I hear a lot of people really dislike it, and they say it's really painful, the contractions are awful. But for me, it was fine. I didn't mind it at all. And so then, I just went to sleep that night. I watched some TV. I brought I have all of the House DVDs, or all the House episodes on DVD. I had a computer back then, and I brought my season 5 and season 6, and I just popped them in, watched them, went to sleep. Everything was cool. I woke up at about 7 or 7:30 in the morning the next day, and this ended up being the day that the girls were born, and I was bleeding, and there was clear fluid dripping down my leg, not gushing, just dripping, but it was definitely a leak in my water. I do not pee myself. There's no reason to think that was pee. It was just one drop, one little drip. But yeah, more importantly, I found my meniscus plug, and so, I said, oh, you need to call them. I woke up my friend, and I said, you need to call the nurses in and tell them that I'm bleeding. My mucus plug came out. So they came in. They said, yeah, it looks like you're ready. It's been however long. It had been like 16 hours or whatever, 18 hours. So they were like, yeah, we definitely need to take this out. You should be 4 or 5 centimeters by now, which is what they want you to be. Normally, if you're walking around, it will like fall out, but because I did it overnight and I was hooked up to all the machines and the monitors, and they didn't have a twin monitor that was where you're able to walk. So this entire time, I was stuck. Not necessarily in my bed. If I wasn't in my bed, I had to be next to my bed because the monitors only went so far. The only time I could get up was to go pee, or they gave me a couple breaks of like 10 minutes to walk around the halls, but I think I only had like 3 of those. And so yeah, they came in, they said, yeah, you're good. They took the Foley balloon out, they checked me, they said you're 4 centimeters dilated, and I just kept having contractions. They started getting pretty uncomfortable because Zaya was so low in my hip. It felt like, I don't know what she was really doing, because I don't know, I didn't have an ultrasound, we obviously don't know exactly what was happening, but it felt like she was in my, like as close to my hip socket as you can get from being inside of me, and shoving my hip out of place is what it felt like. I hear that's kind of what back labor feels like, except it's more in your back, whereas mine was literally in my hip. I mean, it was kind of in my back, but like just right, like where, flank pain is basically. And on the other side it was totally fine. So that was kind of irritating, because it was just like I was having these contractions that were so close together, and every single time I had one, it was just like this shoving pain, some like discomfort. It actually wasn't too bad if I was walking around, if I was bouncing, if I was focused on something, and counter pressure. The nurse who worked there taught my friend how to do counter pressure, and it was so good. It felt so good. We had heating packs. The heating packs felt so good on me, and I was totally down for it. I was like, yes, please. So, yeah, just basically we did that, and then at around 1:30, maybe it was like 12:30, because I think it actually happened around 1:30, the nurse who was on the AM shift there, who was my nurse, came in, and she was like, I think it's time for you to have an epidural. You've been at 4 centimeters for a while, and I think you're going to progress really quickly once you start progressing, which was the fact of the matter. That did happen. But, well, fast for it being my first delivery, So So I said, well, it doesn't hurt, like I can deal for a longer time, only 4 centimeters, but if you think that's what we should do, I'm just going to trust you, because the last thing I wanted to do was miss my opportunity by accident, because I kept pushing it off and then end up not just having babies in the NICU, but having to be put to sleep for a C-section. That's an emergency C-section. Knowing that they were not going to deliver my baby without an epidural, I was like, I'll just take it when they tell me to. So I got it. That was horrible. I didn't feel a single contraction during my entire time getting the epidural, because I was so nervous and so scared. I was so focused on keeping myself still so that I didn't get paralyzed. I was squeezing the crap out of my friend's hands. Like, afterwards she was like, and it was just, no. And it was fine, I mean, in my experience, my uterus was really up high, twins, and it didn't fully work on my entire body. So I was still having contractions way up here that I could feel in entirety. I fell asleep, but I fell asleep with the peanut ball between my legs, which, if you don't know, is like this giant, like, peanut-shaped ball, literally. And they put it between your legs so that it can help the baby, or babies in my case, engage into the pelvis, hopefully. But because I fell asleep like that, I guess all of the medication went to this side of my body, and so this side, which is the side that I was having the hip labor on, I could feel in entirety. I pushed the button to make it more stronger, just to try to even it out. It didn't work. They actually ended up having to have the anesthesiologist come back in and give me another dose, because it was just like it had fallen so far behind that it had basically failed, and we had to get another dose. Like, it was in position, right? So he was able to fix it, but it was, yeah. So, the next thing I know, it was time to push. They came in, they said, our doctor came in, and she said that she was going to be off in an hour, and she wanted to check in on me and see how I'm doing. And I said, please, please, please check me before you leave for the end of your shift. And she was like, of course, no problem. So she came back at, I think it was like 7 p.m. Maybe it was like a little before, like 6:45 or something. And she checked me, and I'm like, oh, I'm probably still a 4, huh? And she's like, you're a 9.5, and because you're having 33 weekers, you can push whenever you're big enough to push. So I was like, what? So she was like, we're going to go get the OR ready, because if you're having twins, you have to deliver in the OR, even if it's vaginal. And please use the call light if you get to the point where you feel pressure in your butt. And so I was like, okay. She left. Like 5 minutes later, I'm like, there's so much pressure in my butt. So I was like, you know what, I'm not even going to use the call light. I asked my friend, I said, can you just go out there? Go out there, tell the nurses. My room was right outside the nurses station. So I was like, go out there and tell whoever you see that I need them to come back in here right now, because I'm going to start pushing in about 5 minutes. So, it wasn't like super, like, I wasn't like about to push. I wasn't like at the point where you have to push and it's painful and you're holding back if they ask you to and stuff, which I've seen on YouTube. But I felt it. I was like, I'm probably at 10. That 5 minutes probably went from a 9.5 to a 10. And so they came and they checked, and they were like, I wasn't quite crowning, but they were like, we can see something, So I was like, yeah. So basically I said, if you guys don't take me to the OR right now, I will start giving birth to these babies in this room. So they took this thing. They were still cleaning the OR. They were almost done, but they were still cleaning it up a little bit. And I was just, the second that I got in that room, I was just like, oh my gosh, and started pushing, and I pushed her out in 15 minutes. They put her on my stomach for like a minute, and they took her from me. Then, my doctor, just like I said, she stuck her arm all the way up, because Frankie didn't flip. Took Frankie by the legs, one push, popped her head out. They put her on me for about a minute, then they took her away. It was very sad. But then I ended up hemorrhaging. I was just bleeding. They delivered the placenta, and I was just bleeding, or placentas. And, I think it's because they told me that they assume it's because I had 2 placentas, and so there's 2 giant gaping holes in my stomach that I'm bleeding from. They gave me a shot of Pitocin, and it was just terrible. Like I think it was like an hour and a half. I mean, I couldn't even tell time because I was losing so much blood. But yeah, my friend told me, and they told me afterwards. My friend told me there was a bucket of my blood, and they told me afterwards that it was almost 2 liters that I lost. It was 1.8 liters in the bucket, plus what was on the floor, so it probably was about 2. And they put the balloon back inside of me to basically plug myself from hemorrhaging in hopes that I would clot, which worked, but my uterus started contracting back down onto this balloon, and it was excruciating. My doctor had left, so the doctor that was on call for overnight didn't understand. Like, I said, look, you need to take this balloon out, you need to deflate it somewhat, you need to do something. It took it probably was only 15 minutes, but it felt like eternity for them to deflate it. And they gave me Ativan, they gave me Oxy, they gave me all this stuff, nothing worked until they deflated it. Then as soon as they deflated it, they were able to move me to my antepartum room. But unfortunately, the overnight nurse decided that I was sleeping so peacefully, and so she didn't want to wake me up to go meet my kids for the second time. So I didn't get to see them until the next morning, which was awful. I ended up having a postpartum infection. I had to IV antibiotics for 2 days, which is why I had to stay there for 2 days. I had an immediate one, and then I think the next morning I had to have another dose, and then in another 24 hours I had to have another dose. And then of course I had to wait after the dose to make sure that everything was fine. I wasn't having any reactions, and I wasn't going back to, I don't know, the antibiotics works, But I would have been allowed to leave on Wednesday afternoon, and they let me stay another day. So I stayed. They officially discharged me, I think, at 11 a.m. on Thursday, but they let me stay till 7 p.m. I just kind of left my room at 2 or 3 and stayed in the NICU for a few hours. But yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen this time, because that was scary. So, but yeah, that's my birth story with the twins. It's not super, super interesting the way that I explained it. I think if I had been able to, I don't know, film stuff or talk about it in the moment or something, maybe it'd be a little more interesting. I'm not saying that my story is boring, because lots of stuff happened, but yeah. It's just, it was 2.5 years ago, so it's a little hard to remember. I was in a fog at the time because, labor just puts you in a fog. My mom told me that when I was young, but I didn't really understand until I was in labor. Hopefully I'm able to film this time, because I do plan to do a labor and delivery vlog and then a birth story of whatever I missed. I haven't asked if it's okay to film. But I know that at the very bare minimum, I'll be able to film updates when they check me and stuff, and I'll be able to, put my phone down and record pushing or whatever, sound-wise at least. I know I can take pictures. They told me I could FaceTime when I was in the hospital before, so I know they're okay with me having my phone and doing stuff. Just, I don't know, it depends on, who's on call, I think, and who's comfortable and where the camera is and all that stuff. So, we'll see. But hopefully I can film. So anyway, that's part 2 of my birth story. And thank you so much for watching. I hope everybody has a fabulous day and a fabulous week. And yeah, I will see you guys soon. All right, bye.